So, well, I guess I'm gonna have a conversation with a few of you. Uh, because I was thinking more question and answer format, but let's try see how this work.
I'm
So,
gonna ping the YouTube live chat too, and if anyone participating, they can do it through me.
okay, sure, no problem. So, so I think the topic is kind of continue what we were talking about last time, which is that the field of psychology originally was more focusing on sort of disorders, psychological disorders, psychopathology, problems people have. And there's a trend in the field where we should also not only, I mean, we can describe like depression very well, for example, but can we describe happiness and virtue as well, right? So that's why there's a trend in the field right now. And so the topic is related to what we were talking about last time, because I think last time I introduced positive psychology a little bit. Um, so today is just sort of a continuation of similar topics. And I will hopefully go over these 5 questions. I was hoping we can have discussion about these 5 questions, right? So, what is happiness? What is unhappiness? How will you change? What make you? What's making it hard for you to change? And when do you need to seek professional help if you need to? I don't know. Depending on how much time or discussion we have, could kind of go over these 5. So, in general, I think in Buddhism we talk about like one of the givens of life is dukkha, unsatisfactoriness, which also means that life is full of challenges and stressors. So, just curious, what are the major stressors that you guys can think of in life? Well, I'm gonna start with you, Debbie.
Sorry, what is the question again?
Yeah, you sound like my student. That's what I hear every day when I teach.
The
um,
question is,
what are the common stressors in life?
in my stage now, I was
Like
a
what
lot of
stress people
stress,
out?
a lot of stress.
Yeah,
But
like what are the common things that stress people out?
common things, I
Like,
cannot do things like what I did before. Finance is like not doing too well.
uh-huh. Okay. Did you say finance?
Finance.
Finance. Okay. Okay. Finance is a one common stressors for
Mhm.
sure. Uh, Zushen, is that the name?
Yeah, and
Yes, yes.
his name is Peter too as well.
Yes, I'm also pursuing a PhD, and I know the stress come from study as well. Yes,
No. What PhD are you pursuing?
electrical engineering.
Oh, that doesn't sound very entertaining. Jeez.
Well, if you don't enjoy it, you cannot be a PhD for that. So it's
Oh,
like, yeah, at the first stage, need to have some interest on it. But later, it's like when going to do a PhD, I feel it's like a little bit, how to say that, how to keep the interest while maintaining a good performance for all the research work, and not only that, but also balance the life with it, and yeah, and also how to find time to do the religious practice. That's also another huge part, and yes, and now I'm facing job hunting, so that's another topic, how to go back to the society. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, this is I mean, of course, I mean, if you have interest in your field, that must be fun, but at the same time, PhD program can be quite stressful, especially I don't know about you guys. I mean, there are a lot of PhD students who can never finish PhD actually. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, you heard about stories like this, but a lot of we have plenty of ABDs, for example, right? People who are smart enough to finish the whole program, but for some reason they cannot finish that last step. It's quite interesting, right?
Yeah, exactly. Just because it's not like the normal day. I mean, the common study, like you just go back pass a test, and that test only takes 2 hours, and the study you do is like a 1 semester or something, and then you finish that content, you can go to another one. The PhD is a long time process.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's definitely so you definitely know what stress looks like. Warren, you have any guess? Like we have finance, we have like school, work,
Ye-
job hunt.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk a little bit about or related to what I observe and then also myself, right? Is that what I have been observed mostly, obviously, I've been out of school for a long time. Um, there are straight stress related um, that I observe around work, right? And when the deliverables or the work that needs to be get done and fast and furious, and if the companies across the world is under pressure to perform for their shareholders, right? And depending on whether what position you're in, and also the CEOs and the CXOs and what have you, they are under pressure, right? And then that kind of gets flowed down through the organizations to deliver, and in order to bring in revenues and improve operating expenses and what have you, right? To make the shareholders happy, stock goes up. So that's going to create stress with everybody based on pressure. And then along the same lines with my colleagues around work, some of them have lots of kids or obligations. So, whether if it's daycare, um, picking up the kids, being the chauffeur during the weekend. So that creates stress too as well.
Yeah.
So I've
No,
observed quite a bit of those.
I mean, you make good examples, right? I mean, and I think some of the examples you're talking about are not, you don't have 100% control over it either, right? I mean, your company can demand XYZ, but I mean, it's sometimes it's not up to you to have control of those XYZ. And I think in general, when the, in, I think one way to think about stress is that when the demand, environmental demand or inner demand is more than what you can provide or more than what you can handle, that will start to stress us out in general. So it's a part of normal life. Here are just some of the common ones that in normally, if normally we more or less will experience, right? Losing a loved ones, separation, making changes, long-term illness, job loss. These are all quite common, and the first noble truth talk about the 8 different form of dukkha, right? I mean, like if we are Buddhists, we're quite familiar with the kind of the stressors that any normal human being will experience. And we are in general quite stressed. more or less, right? More or less, we're in general quite stressed out. And we all have stress in general in some way, okay? So how do we live a good, happy life with stress? Since stress is a given in life. I mean, it's inevitable, right? A lot of stuff we're gonna face is inevitable, right? You go through life, you go through changes, and you are always going to deal with things that you have no control over. So the question is that, is it possible to be happy? And what is happiness like? And we all have different definition about what happiness is. But what does it mean to be happy? Zhu why don't you start? Like, what is your version of happiness? You know?
I feel it's more of a inner feeling, actually, of a sense of fulfilling, and but of course it's hard to describe it. If you want to say from my now what has happiness, more solid answer for me is like, okay, graduate soon and get together with my girlfriend, find a job. Yeah, of
Very
course.
concrete stuff, right? Yeah.
Exactly. It's like of course I have some inner feeling of what stage I can make me feel happy, and that stage is like may probably depends on some concrete thing. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think what you're saying is quite common, right? Like we
Yeah.
always feel like I have to have X, Y, or Z
Yeah.
to feel better, right? I have to have the
Yeah.
job, the girl, right? Right, the money to
Yeah.
feel
Some
better.
of course it's like we have to be, how to say that, happy to, I mean, how we should be happy regardless what's outside will be. But uh, from a more practical or a commonly accepted situation is like you need to have some concrete thing. Yeah.
Right. Concrete is important. And Debbie, what do you think? What is your version of happiness?
Actually, I'm quite happy every day.
Oh, that's good. So tell us about your
I just go with the 四它英文怎么讲啊 The four. I'm using the four 四它
Oh. The for it.
Yeah, the
Oh,
four.
you mean from
Yes,
Sifu?
from
Oh,
Yes.
okay,
I have
okay.
been practiced that for a few years now.
Uh-huh.
I'm
Okay.
not there, but I am. Now I'm more happy than before.
Okay. So you're saying the for it, so for
Yeah.
the audience is to face it, accept it, deal with it, and let it go, right?
Yes.
The for it are the ways to help us to reach happiness. But what is happiness to you?
For
What is
example,
like what is happiness by your definition?
wow, the most happiness I still can see, although I need to wear reading glass.
Huh?
Although I have to wear reading glass, that's what I told my husband this afternoon, when we did the Sunday with Wallen with the meditation, and I ordered food online, so I need to see what is there, right? So the most happiness is I can, although I need to wear reading glass, but I can see. So I
Uh-huh.
can get, like in the morning I woke up, I have thyroid cancer, so I woke up, I go to the washroom, I took my pill, then I go back to bed, and then I go, wow, thank God, thank you that I still able to walk. I can see.
Uh-huh.
I haven't talked to myself, but I answer to myself, so I'm happy already. That's what I
Uh-huh.
mentioned to my husband
Okay.
this afternoon.
Okay. Good. So you're saying happiness to you is to be happy with what you already have.
Yes.
Right. I think that's what you're trying to say, right? Like you're grateful to whatever you already have right now. And you're like okay, very okay with what it is, right? Yeah. And I assume health is something that's important to you, right? So have
Yeah.
health is important aspect of being happy. And Oren, what is your version of happiness?
Yeah, I think happiness for me it changes, through progress, through ages, right? Through uh growth. Is that very young, right? Well, first of all, the opposite of happiness when I was young, or for most people, I would think, is that when the situation that they are facing versus the skills or whatever they have at the present at the time, there's a gap, and that's going to create stress. And when that gets resolved, for whatever reasons, however that happens, and that happiness sits in. And some people, right, like when I was younger, when I get stressed out, I'll go watch a movie, watch some comedy, but that's only temporary,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then you progress, as we can talk about that later, into what happiness is, um, to me, which is, in the purest form, is right in the present moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like what Debbie was talking about, Master Sheng Yin's uh, lessons or teaching about the 4 steps of um, solving problems, right? It can
Mm-hmm.
actually go quite deep. So, um, it happiness for me at home is when I see my parents are healthy. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
little bit stressed out, when they are under the weather or sick or aging. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, don't ask for much nowadays.
I think you make a great point. Like as we age, as our life changes, we develop more sort of repertoire and tools to seek and understood what happiness is. Um, I think when we were younger, when we are pursuing career or jobs or some kind of achievements, um, the way we define happiness may be different, right? In general. But I think the common sort of agreement here is that it seems like in general, if you're less stressed, you should be a bit more happy, right? I mean, I think that's just in general, right? Here are just some of the possible answers, right? That people can talk about sometime. Like, what does it mean to be happy? And and some of these some of these common answers kind of quite fit to what we were talking about, right? Sort of like, for example, why the for it would be useful, because for it give us a sense of freedom. Like we know what to do about it, right? I mean, so to be happy has this sort of sense of empowerment, control, right? I'm in charge of my life, right? And also normally a person who can appreciate life tend to have a healthier sense of self in some way, right? There's a sense of self-esteem, self-confidence. Um, when everything goes right, there's a sense of vitality, right? Like you wake up in the morning with a sense of energy, right? It's how like you woke up in the morning, one way to wake up is like another day, and another way to wake up is like, oh, here comes another day, right? I mean that is, I guess that's one good test to see how happy we are tomorrow after we go sleep tonight. Let's see how we wake up tomorrow morning. Right?
Exactly.
um I think some of the major ones here though is that happiness do have something to do with achievement as well, right? I mean, usually people who feel their life is good usually would have some sense of achievement. And in order to achieve something, you often have to go through good chunk of amount of stress. So maybe stress is not as bad as we think, right? Because you need to go through amount of stress to achieve something, right? Same thing with purpose, right? Like if we want to, a good life usually have some sort of purpose, and sometimes, to have an important purpose, you have to go through a bunch of tough challenges in life. So happiness here does not necessarily mean stress-free, but it's like enough amount of stress that help us moving forward, right? Sort of like working out in the gym, right? Like imagine you're lifting weights. If you don't feel a thing, chances are you're not gonna build any muscles, right? So let's just have some healthy sort of views on what stress is, right? Stress is normal in some way. I guess the tricky part is how much, right? Of course, I think one of the most important thing, and we learn about this all the time, right? Before you become a Buddha, you should learn to have good relationship with people, right? Yeah, 未成佛前，先结好人缘, right? This is a quite important point. So people who live a good life do have satisfying relationship in general. And so I think the reason we're talking about happiness and stress here is that often if you're not clear on what they are, we may pursue the wrong direction in life, right? We may pursue the wrong direction in life. So what is unhappiness? Of course, we were talking about what unhappiness looks like, such as having a lot of stress, more than the normal amount. Any other possible answers on unhappiness? I mean, we can start from extreme end, like extreme. Like what would be an extreme low point in terms of our emotional health?
I think the thing goes to the unexpected way, maybe some unhappiness. For example, I want to get some soya sauce to my soup, but I ran out of it. I just have to only put salt in it. So it's like a really low scale of unhappiness. But if you talk about some extreme thing, for example, it's like if I have a child, I want to feed him, but I run out of all the food. That is really extreme unhappiness.
Okay, so it would be like stress. So now you're describing like a stressful situation. You need to feed your family food and you can't. That would be,
I think it's not only the stress itself, but also like a sense of uncontrol. It's like you feel meaningless something. That's not only, I think it's a combination between stress and low self-estimation.
Okay. So now you're talking about something more than just stressful situations such as feeding someone food. Now you're talking about a sense of no purpose, lack of purpose, right? So if someone live their life without a clear purpose,
exactly,
that may not help, right? If someone who have low self-esteem, if someone see themselves as worthless, that probably doesn't help too well either, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Debbie, any example on what unhappiness looks like?
Helen, when I'm unhappy with whatever, so can I tell myself as causes and effect? 因果.
Oh, I think you're jumping ahead. You're jumping ahead. We're right now we're just talking about unhappiness. Yeah.
So when my husband upset me, my child upset me, then I just said to myself that it's 因果嘛.
Okay.
And I settled down. Is that okay?
Well, I think in general, if our kids saying wrong thing or husband saying wrong thing to us, that could make us feel unhappy. I mean, that's
Yes.
one level of unhappiness.
Yes.
And how you deal with it, I mean, we could save it for later, but for now,
Oh, okay.
that would be one level of unhappiness. But like, what would be an extreme form of unhappiness? Like Warren, what would you?
Very unhappy. I try to practice tapezo and I
Okay.
never get it.
Uh-huh. Well, Debbie, you're jumping ahead. Right now, let's just focus on what does unhappiness looks like.
Oh, what is unhappy?
Yeah, what is
I
unhappiness?
think I'm happy with most of things.
Okay, but like what? But have you seen unhappy people?
Yes.
So what are they
Like
unhappy?
when I turn on the TV, every day
What
in
what
Toronto
are
now,
they unhappy about?
every day in Toronto the last 2 weeks, I turn on the TV, somebody kill somebody.
Okay.
But
Well,
after that,
that would
yeah,
be an extreme form of unhappiness now, right?
yes, like
Someone
every
try to
day
kill you. Yeah.
every day in Toronto now. Like yesterday, they go to Tim Horton. A lady go to Tim Horton, pull into Tim Horton, and the car chase her, and then they sue her.
Uh-huh.
But unhappy, so I try to avoid news. Like
Uh-huh.
I
Yeah.
try to avoid. That's what I do. When I
Okay.
know stuff is not gonna make me happy, then I avoid to those news of people. Is that the right thing to do, Dr. Lam? I avoid
I
to see
think
people.
I think what you're describing here is that unhappiness could also mean when bad things happen to people.
Yes.
Bad thing happen to us, right? It's like people try to kill us, people try to sue us, or right now the hurricanes, right? If your house happened to be in a hurricane, you could lose everything. That would be all examples of unhappiness or
Yes.
like extreme dangerous event happen to us, for example. Yeah, Warren.
And I will share a story when I was very little. Wanted to go out to play, and my mom would not let me because I did not finish my homework. Right. So
Uh-huh.
at the time, I was extremely unhappy because I don't get to go out and play
Yeah.
because I have to finish my homework. And it was a Chinese homework, right? Where you have little Chinese character at the top and you gotta like do the same thing, down the line.
Yeah, we all
So
did that.
that's exact. I now when we talked about unhappiness, I can definitely recall that. And so what I did is I was pouting, sitting down, I started writing it, and then I found a shortcut. I draw the line all the way down for each character as if I was finishing it without actually writing the character. Told my mom I was finished. Um, and then she say, "Let me check it." I say, "No." Anyway, she beat the crap out of me, and I did not. Um, I ended up not going out to play. So that was
Uh,
really happy. But
that's like
thinking back,
double bad event happened to you after that.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
we laughed about it.
Yeah. No, that's a great example. I mean, like we can come up with so many examples on what makes us unhappy, right? Or what makes us stressed out. But here are some of the more extreme example I'm thinking about. All right.
Mm.
So here are just whole bunch of ideas on why life could be dukkha here, right? Life is dukkha for a reason. I mean, the extreme version, of course, what I'm thinking about is mental health, right? Mental illness. I mean, when you have mental illness, that's in general, by definition, you are going to be very unhappy by definition, right? That's why it's called mental disorder. So here are just, but even without mental disorders, we still can have like symptoms of low mental health symptoms. And those are all examples on what's it like to live a tough life. So feeling sad, depressed, lethargic, feeling anxious, feeling lonely. By the way, feeling lonely is a pandemic right now. It's one of the most common problem people describe in the internet or I guess social media age. Um, very common example of unhappiness is conflict with people. Not getting what you want in life, not able to achieve your goal, or not having any goal. So here are just possible example of what unhappiness looks like. So here, I guess I'm gonna like give a stress test. So stress is one key thing that we should learn to deal with. So here, let me give you a stress test that we think is quite accurate. So out of all unhappiness, people usually describe stress as the most common one. And so imagine, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you a psychological test where I'm gonna show you a picture of two dolphins, okay? And how stressful you are depending on how much you can tell the differences between the two dolphins. Sounds good?
Sure.
Okay. So if you could see two or more differences between the dolphins, that means you're stressed out in life. Okay. Sounds good? All right.
Sure.
All right. Here's the test. Okay. Okay. So I assume we're all stressed out, right? Okay. I mean, I like to talk about stress because since we're Buddhists and I'm a psychologist, I always consider that Siddhartha is really I usually consider our founder Siddhartha as one of the very earliest psychologists in the human history because he often say that one thing only, which is the suffering and the end of suffering. Right? I mean, that's what sort of the core teaching of Buddhism is really about dukkha and the end of the dukkha, which is quite similar to the goal of my field, which our goal is to help people to deal with distress in life. So basically, what I found that's interesting is that both Buddhism and psychology have some common goals, and it's important to study what can help people live a better life because based on the scientific literature, how happy we are not purely from the environment. They are also some biological contribution to how happy we are by default. Imagine that. You know how some of us are tall, some of us are short, some of us are strong, some of us are weaker. Same thing with positive emotions. Some of us tend to be born with more positive emotion. Some of us tend to be born with less positive emotion to begin with, just by scientific literature. However, our genetics does not determine everything. What's even more important is although some of us born strong, some of us born weak, we still need to train what we are born with to develop ways to live a better life. In other words, don't let don't let your biology limit us, right? Just some of us may born more angry, more aggressive, but it does not mean you cannot do anything about it. We still can learn to manage what we have and learn to live the best out of it. So that's the more important point. That's the more important point here today. So the key word here really is that although life can be stressful, happiness can be considered as a skill. I think that's the key point today, really, is that life can be distressful. However, we can learn ways to deal with it. And that's in the spirit of Buddhism as well. All right. The first noble truth is talking about life could be distressful. Yet Buddha said that's not the point, right? Buddha said the point is we all have the ability and we all have the potential to free ourselves from the distress. And it's kind of important to understand this point because we are usually not very good at predicting what makes us happy. And often our society give us some kind of script about how to live a good life, but usually that script are not very accurate either. That makes sense? So again, in general, I don't think, based on the scientific literature, in general, people don't have the best skill in estimating what makes them feel happy. In general. Sounds good? So, for example, does marriage make people happy? I mean, when you want to get married, that's what you imagine, right? I have to get married to be happy, right? I mean, right? Zeus, right? Zushan, you need a girlfriend to marry you, and you're gonna have a happy.
I need to learn this really in deep. I'm considering that, to be honest, recently.
Yeah, I mean, at least that's what the society tells us, right? You have to get married to be happy, right? So here's the data, for example, like 0 is the year people get married. This is like 5 year after, 5 year before, and here is like the level of satisfaction with life. So you know how before you're married, your life satisfaction is around here, and when you know you're about to get married, it's up here. Then 10 years later, you're there.
1 year later, Dr. Lam.
Huh?
And
By the way, I'm not.
6 months.
But by the way, I'm not saying this is you, okay? I'm just saying this is just based on some survey, and you ask people to fill it out. You know, of course.
So how long is it now?
Huh?
Dr. Lam? How long is they happy now, the married couple?
I mean, this is the year they get married. This is 5 years, and this is 10 years after marriage. And this is how happy they are.
So where's the 35 year after 35 years?
35, I don't know. I mean, 35 years, it's hard to say.
That's a very interesting graph and statistics, Peter, because if you look at it, right, starting from 0 and then after marriage, it sort of goes up a little bit and then goes all the way. It really steep slope. So I guess at that point is that the what do they call it? Which I'm not very familiar with. Honeymoon, it's over, right? What?
7 years, the 7th year.
Is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah, that's 7th year about here.
Wow.
Yeah. By the way, don't take this too seriously, okay? This is just average, right? After we control, by the way, this is like after we control everything else, like the income, the age, and all that. Here's another one. We all think that we have to have enough money. Here's an example. So here is like since 1958 to 1990s. Of course, there's more updated data by now, but I mean, it's probably similar. In general, every year, everyone's on national average, the life satisfaction is about the same. But then the amount of money people makes generally do increase after you account for the inflation and all that. So like if you take away the factor of inflation and all that, people do make more in general. People do have more stuff in general nowadays compared to your grandparents. That kind of makes sense, right? we do have more stuff nowadays. We do have more money compared to our grandparents. But if you measure the life satisfaction, like how general, how satisfied they are with life, it's about the same.
Yeah. Wow.
By the way, I'm not telling people that you shouldn't get married or you shouldn't make money. Okay, that's not the point. I think the point here is that it takes more than what you have to make yourself feel happy sometimes. Right? Happiness is not just based on those things, but what you do with those things probably matters more. Right? What you do with your relationship, what you do with your finance, your money, so what makes you happy is how skillful you are in life. Of course, in general, if you have some basic resources, it definitely make things a lot easier. So I'm not gonna say money doesn't matter because money do matter to a certain extent, right? Money it does matter depending where you live. But after a while, it hits plateau. The effects of it hits a plateau, and then you kind of start really relying on skillful means on how to live a good life. So I would say both psychology and Buddhism would consider living a good life is really requires some kind of skill or practice, right? When we say practice, when we say charm practice here literally means be better at something, be better at something, right? Like meditation is to be better at training our mind, for example. So that's what I meant by skills here. So how can people change from less happy to from this level to this level? How to live a better life? How to live a happier life? I think we're quite familiar with Sifu's teaching, right? I mean, we talk about the 4-It before, right? Debbie, you talk about to be grateful, right? So like these are some. So everyone, it's like this, right? So we know mental health is important. So just like physical health is important. In order to have good physical health, you need to do XYZ thing, right? You need to eat healthy, right? You need to drink plenty of water, have enough sleep. You need to do exercises. We kind of know what to do for physical health. How about mental health? What do we do to maintain our mental health? Since that's the foundation of living a good life.
I think I have experience. It's like first you need to have a good physical health. Yeah.
Ah,
Of course, if you compromise it, you can also make your way. But if you have the opportunity, it's better you get your physical health first, and then your hormones or all of those things inside your body will make you much better. That's what I actually learned during the PhD. Like if the life doesn't go what I want, then I just make one that I feel better. Just do more exercise. Yeah.
Well, I mean, what you're saying is quite correct. That, by the way, our physical health and mental health are not two things. They're not really separate, right? And one thing we learn from meditation is that we know when we meditate, for example, we need to learn to harmonize our body, our breath, and our mind. And because those three things are connected, right? So and research can also show you that when your mind is unhealthy, you are more likely to be physically unhealthy and vice versa. If you're physically healthy, you are more likely to be mentally healthy, right? I mean, they do influence each other. Yeah, yeah. Like if you have like if you have depression, for example, you're more likely to get cancer, right? I mean, there are plenty of research show you the interconnectedness between physical illness and mental illness. So it is important to take care your physical health. Any other things people should like? What do people do to take care of their mental health to
I
make
think
themselves feel better?
another thing is like to find a really good support system for yourself.
Ah, good, good.
Yes, I mean based on relationships specifically. Yeah.
No, actually, that's one very important point. Data actually show people who have good mental health tend to have good support system in life. So, for example, like you actually have, so Sangha in Buddhism is quite important. Why? Because Sangha is the support system, right? Right? You don't practice Zen by yourself. You practice with a group of people together. And that's quite scientific, actually. That's quite scientific, actually. It's a community, right? It's a community. Um, any other things that could help people with mental health, Debbie?
Peter, I do have mental illness for years. I find that when I go to mental group support, that's worse. Like they keep going on with, you know. So I did not go to, I did attend to mental health before for support, but I find that it keep going on. It didn't help me at all.
Uh-huh.
Oh.
So, but it's okay, and it's not for everyone. But like, what do people do to keep up their mental health, though? Like, what do people do to keep themselves healthy?
To me, I believe to be Buddhist. Now I'm meditation and I'm doing, sutra, attend to temple. No, like mostly online.
Uh-huh.
I find that it help to understand that inqua
Uh-huh.
process. This way it helped me more than when I go to mental support. Actually,
Uh-huh.
I don't know really I have mental illness because thyroid cancer, mood jump up and down. So go
Yeah.
with the skill. They say I have mental illness. So they put me on a depression pill.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I go to the support group. It didn't help me. It just made
Mm-hmm.
me more depressed.
Mm-hmm.
So to me,
Yeah,
like,
unfortunately, yeah. I think thyroid does make a lot of mood changes. Yeah, and maybe that's why they try to stabilize your mood. Um, but if you're with people who you don't feel supportive, I don't think they will be helpful. If you,
that's
yeah, yeah,
years ago. Yeah, years ago I did attend. I
uh-huh,
didn't feel that it helped me.
mm,
And also, I don't know if I'm doing the right things, like
yeah,
years ago, right? So I stopped, like, and then on pandemic, I did try to join on Zoom too. I find like the more they take in, the more make you more depressed.
okay,
So
um,
yeah, so I only attend for like a class, and they keep email to me. I never. It's just
uh-huh,
taking info. I don't know. I rather do meditation or do like sutra. Then I will make, I'm gain more wisdom than keep
mm,
going. What is your problem? What is your problem? I don't know if
yeah.
I'm doing the right thing, Dr. Peter.
Uh-huh. Well, I think we all have to find our sort of ways to make ourselves feel better. So it seems like for you, spiritual practice is the most helpful thing, right? Spiritual practice. And Warren, how about you? Anything like what do you do or what people do in general to keep themselves happier?
Yeah, for me is I completely agree and echo what you were saying, right? Is that both physically and mentally they come together, right? If I go out and move around like yesterday, I went around and slow run for about 2.3 miles, and that allows my body to become a little bit more alive, so to speak, right? Well,
Mm-hmm.
exercise is good for me. And that in terms brings up my brain activities and more active. That I noticed that. And
Mm-hmm.
then going back to what Peter was referring to, or Zhu Trans is referring to, having a good, right, quote unquote, good support group that you can echo with, right?
Mm-hmm.
For instance, what David was talking about is something on the support group that she had may not be what she was desiring to, right? But she's more inclined or echo with let's say, the Sangha group or the meditation group, right? A good support group. And I think the most important thing for me is uh, just being aware, right?
Mm-hmm.
Being, because if we become more and more aware, uh, our internal mental condition, it's not always easy, and be brutally honest with ourselves, then change will come. Because
Mm-hmm.
once we recognize that, and if we think that we needed to do something, and that's gonna get kicks, no, that's gonna kickstart.
Good, good, good.
Yeah.
All good points. All good points. I think focusing on what you just said about awareness, I think awareness is quite important. And there are different level of awareness. The simplest level of awareness is actually have knowledge about it, right? Have to have some basic knowledge about mental health. So as a mental health professional, like talks like this, my number one goal usually with talks like this is to make people become interested in mental health. Imagine you're interested in mental health as imagine this country, the way people are interested in mental health as if they are interested in sports, for example, right? Like you know how like you're interested in sports, everything you read is about sports, right? Or stock market, right? Some people imagine you're interested in mental health as if you're interested in stock market. You know how like people would read the stock every day, read the sports every day, right? Imagine or like the way you're interested in your mental health is as if you're interested in the Netflix show, right? You talk about it every day, you watch it every day. In general, mental health is information and knowledge, right? Like what the stress looks like, what depression looks like. These all are part of awareness. So I would say awareness is definitely important. And I think we mentioned about support group, right? Surround yourself with the right group of people is definitely important, right? And our mental health and physical health are not separate. So for example, in traditional charm practice, we need to harmonize not just the body, the breath, and the mind, but we also need to harmonize what our sleep and our food, right? Right, right. 调饮食, 调睡眠, 调身, 调心, 调息, right? They're all interconnected. So everything is a package. Everything's a package, right? So so that makes sense. Like, doesn't matter you're Buddhist or not, we all have some kind of idea on what are the right thing to do. Like if you want to be physically healthy, you do exercise. If you want to be a good Buddhist, you do meditation, for example. Right, makes sense, right? Yeah. Yeah, no, that's I could skip this one. Okay. So I'm gonna skip this part. Hold on a second. So let me skip here. Here are some of the common ways that could be helpful to people. And you kind of have to try it out to know what's helpful to you. But in general, for example, number one, people who are good, people who have good mental health tend to be people who are good at knowing what their feeling is, knowing how to manage their feeling, and knowing how to express their feeling, for example. Right. And there are different ways to do that. Sometimes people take dream diaries and they use dreams to help themselves. And sometimes what's helpful to people is to open themselves to new ideas. And what's also important, as we speak earlier, is to learn who are the right people that you should surround yourself with. Right? I mean, believe me, not everyone knows that. Often we can surround ourselves with the wrong people. Right? So also there's sort of a willingness to try something new that you never done before. The ability to set up realistic goals or useful goals, or sort of motivation to seek lessons in life. So these are some common things that could help people to feel happier. And what do they all have in common? I mean, we talk about, other than the stuff we talk about here, we also talk about other things, right? Like exercising, meditation, right? I mean, there's a bunch of things people can do to try it out. Make sense? Just like if you want to be physically healthy, you should go out, take a run, 2 miles, maybe, for example. What's the problem? You know that you should go meditate and read your sutra, but then for whatever reason, when time to meditate, you're like, I want to watch that Netflix show, and then you skip, you know? You know that you should go, you know you should go take jog, right? Warren, you run 2 miles, so I never run. I usually don't. I know running should be good for me, but this is what's gonna happen. Someone never run before, like, okay, I'm gonna try 1 mile. I'm gonna try 1 mile today now. So first day you run, you feel really good. Next day you run again, you feel really good, but now you feel really sore now. Third day you're like, let me take a rest. Let me just skip 1 day. Next thing you know, you forget about it. This looks common.
Just about everything, Peter, right?
Yeah.
And you know, meditators as well.
Well, you know, when I started meditating, I was like that. I'm like, I'm gonna meditate every day. I did it for 2 days and then I start to skip.
Yeah.
Only so I think prior to 2003, I was like this, like on and off as a meditator. I think only after 2003, I became daily meditator. Even till today, I always have like, I have nonstop meditation soon. So knowing what to do is great, but are you able to carry through? That's the tricky part.
Yeah.
Right. All right, Debbie, you like to read sutra, right? Your goal is to read sutra every day, right? No.
No, only when there's a group, Peter. like a Zoom
Okay.
group. So I follow them. I never read it by myself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's common. It's common. The reason why, and this is where I think here's the key point today is one, mental happiness is a skill, mental health is a skill, right? Two, we all know there are things we can do about it. But three is to notice our resistance. Resistance here means we're gonna try to come up all sort of things to not make a change in anything in general. Like so talk about karma, that's karma, right? Like that's what karma feels like, right? Once you have this karmic movement, once we have this habitual tendency, it's if you want to break that habit, it takes a lot of effort, right? If you want to be a meditator, it takes a lot of effort actually to be a daily meditator. It takes effort. So what's the trick? I stop here. So what's the trick to develop something? What do you think?
Peter,
Yeah?
the last 2 years when Changshan Fashi on Zoom, right? So I see him in front of me, or Wallen in front of me sitting. I am doing well, right, Wallen? So now, Changshan Fashi is off to Taiwan, and they put on YouTube. So I am skipped for the last 1 week now. But do we really need to be meditation on the cushion, or we can practice on daily life?
We should do both, Debbie.
Hey?
We should do both, Debbie.
like to me, when Faster not in front of me, like on the YouTube, I rather do sutra, and then I am focused on the reading, right? So I don't 我不打妄念，我不会打妄念 right? Otherwise, like when I'm doing meditation and then nobody turn on the camera but myself or one person, then I turn it off too, and then I wonder, and I'm not doing well, so why waste my time to do that, right? So maybe it's like there's a group of they doing like 8:30. They also doing the same thing with chanting on Zoom, but they're using YouTube, like real person there to do the rest. So on the other side, I think I will do better than I am cheating on myself. I turn on the Zoom, I sign in, but my camera is off. Then I'm somewhere else. Like I cannot. Like I asked my husband, he saw me every day. He say it's very hard, right? So like same time, I rather sign into reach Sutra with a group. I think I'm more focused on because the work that I don't, think about something else. Am I right or wrong? I don't know.
Well, I think you're using Sutra Group as an example, and I'm just gonna talk about a whole bunch of things in general, right? Either you want to do exercise, you want to meditate, right? You want to join a group, right? I think we all sort of have some kind of, well, first of all, you should have some kind of goal to make change, right? If I want to make change, I'm gonna meditate. If I'm gonna make change, I'm going to take a jog. For example, we start with that. Make sense? Then we all have to start to be careful with how to set up the right goal. So if my goal is to run 2 miles every day, I may not want to start by doing that right away, for example, right? Because you don't want to set yourself up for failure. So the tricky thing And this is same thing with even writing dissertation, doctoral dissertation, right? The goal is to finish the whole dissertation, but the tricky thing is we have to set up in a way that so we don't fail. And the way to do that is to break it into small steps. So cannot be too small, cannot be too big, but small enough to make you feel a sense of achievement, yet easy enough for you to finish it. So if your goal is to read sutra every day, for example, you may want to start out by one simple one, 3 times a week first. Like that's the tricky part, right? I know the principle, but it's up to you to set it up correctly, right? So when I was writing my dissertation, my goal is to write like 1 page a day, right? I mean, so something that would make you feel achieve something, but then at the same time, it's not too hard. Don't make it too hard, don't make it too easy. Then the next thing you want to do is to set up your environment correctly, right? So if your goal is to run exercise, you may want to sort of clear up your environment in a way that make you more likely to do that thing, right? If your goal is to do sutra, then the goal is to set up your desk in a way that when it's time to do the sutra, that's the only thing you get to look at. So environment is quite important. That's why we meditate in certain environment, right? That's why we meditate in a Chan hall, because the environment is actually very important. So you need to set up your environment in a way that will help you to do whatever you want to do. Right. So if you want to write your reports and you have your phone and Netflix right next to you, it's just gonna be 10 times harder because someone gonna like send you stuff and then you're just gonna start to do something else. So that makes sense, right? I mean, this is like very simple, basic idea, but for some reason, it's not easy. The trickier part is really the way we think about it. Because what's gonna happen is when it's time for us to do something, we're gonna come up good excuses to tell us why we shouldn't be doing it. It's time to meditate, and we say, meditation is meant to meditate in daily life, so I don't need to meditate now, really. I told myself that. It, like when I was younger, I'm like, I couldn't learn to I don't need to sit and meditate. I could meditate by lying on my bed. That's exactly what I told myself. That makes sense, right? Yeah. I used to know one Buddhist friend who went shopping and she saw this super expensive bag and she knew she shouldn't be buying it. But then she's like, but you know how good people are when they try to come up a reason to do something they shouldn't be doing? You know what kind of reason she came up with? I need to experience the dukkha so I get to more familiar with it. And I can be empathic to other people who suffer from the same thing. That makes sense, right? So the whole point is, what makes psychology interesting is that we are not so interested in what you should be we're not so interested in what you should be doing. We're more interested in what you should be doing, but why you're not doing it.
Mm.
That makes sense, right? We all we all know what the right thing to do, really. Like when you give how we give advice to people, usually the advice we give to people are the advice that people already knew. Your friend is drinking too much and you're like, don't drink. No kidding. Right? Your friend is not meditating. Go meditate. No kidding. They don't need your advice on that, right? So what's more interesting is why are you not doing it? And of course, you could set everything correctly, but it's really our mentality. At the end of the day, there's certain belief we have. That's what we need to be more aware of. And that's what meditation can help us to do is when we meditate, our goal is not to be a sitting Buddha that's not moving there. Our goal is to be able to know what pull us away from the present. Right. The reason why we need to be in the present is so we know what keep us away from the present. Right. You should use the method, but it's really what's make it more interesting is what kind of wandering thoughts, what kind of mental habit that pull you away from it. That's how we get to pick up our personal habitual tendencies. That's how we pick up 习气, right? Like if you want to change your habitual tendency, the very first step is you're gonna notice it. And how do you notice it? You have to set up a condition that help you to notice it. Make sense?
Pretty awesome,
Yeah.
Peter.
Huh?
It's pretty
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. So meditation is not just about sitting there not moving. It's really helping you to again understand your old tricks. More importantly, once you become more familiar with your old mental tricks, then you need to pick up your old mental tricks in daily lives, how they creep up in your daily life, right?
I
So,
was just thinking, Peter.
huh?
As you're talking through this, I was just thinking, is that how I overcame my undesirable habit. Let's say I I don't run every day. I really wanted to run every day or at least walk every day, but I didn't. And many other things. And what worked for me, and then you brought this to light to kind of put the whole thing together for me. What I did that was working for me is a couple of things: small steps, big dreams. And then that's one. The other one is that just be so curious about what will happen. So, in other words, I'm sitting here, for example, uh, I know I'm supposed to go and run and walk, exercise. Didn't want to because I have all these excuses, right? Work to do, this and that. And then I tricked myself to say, you know what? I wonder how I would feel if I just dress up, go out the door, and come right back in. Small steps
Mm-hmm.
and curiosity, right? And say, what the heck will happen to me? What would I have thought? And that kind of helped me forming the habits on several areas that I wanted to form. For example,
Mm-hmm.
walking
Yeah.
consistently or running. But you just put it all together. It's like, okay, it's actually psychology. It's about, you said it well, but I cannot regurgitate right now. But it's about understanding ourselves, and I did that just through curiosity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Trick myself to say, I wonder what I would react or think if I just take a tiny little step on this.
So I'm gonna sum up for you. I think both either modern psychology or charm practice, what the awareness that we need to have is really about the awareness of the self, right? Right. You think of a self as a verb. Self is more like a verb than a noun, right? Self is an action, right? When we put the self in what we're doing, it it's a form of habitual tendency. So you want to be very aware of how this habitual tendency creeps up when you want to go out running, when you want to meditating, right? So the meditation is sort of set up a lab for us to be more aware of our habitual tendencies, because it's that habitual tendency that take us away from the present moment. That's what present moment is important,
Bingo.
right? So the more you become familiar with your habit, right? So some people meditating, and that the moment they start meditating, their goal is to seek that good state. You know how meditators are? I want to be in that good meditative state. Believe me, that habit pops up in your life as well, for example, right? And you get frustrated. How come I'm not having a good meditation state here? You know, like it's very subtle. It's very subtle. So that's the fun part. I would say that's the fun part. Be curious about, so I'm gonna bring in, be curious about your resistance, right? Either in whatever you want to do, to sum it up that way. So I think we can done here today. Any question for me?
Yeah, Mr. Lin, yeah, Dr. Lin, I should say this way. What is the, yeah, what is the motivation for you to combine Buddhism with psychology? It's like I feel it's like because your major previously is psychology, but you have Buddhism like you can say a habit or like even you just like that. So it's like that is the main motivation for you to combine them together, or you actually have some for example, in the study of psychology, you find something and then you go into the Buddhism field.
I was actually inspired when I was young. One of the books that inspired me to become interested in Buddhism was a Buddhist book written by a psychologist. So Zheng Shiyan, I don't know any of you heard of him before, but he was a Taiwanese psychologist who also I think give lectures at Dharma Drum right now. But he was one of the pioneers in Taiwan that combined psychology and Buddhism together. I mean, that's the original. That's how I become interested in Buddhism. One of the reasons, but also because right now Buddhism is actually used a lot in the Western mental health field. They just don't call it Buddhism. They call it mindfulness.
Yeah.
That's like one of the most popular thing right now in the field of mental health or physical health. Even our New York City mayor last year said all public school should teach mindfulness for, sixth graders, like elementary school. So it became a thing right now. So it's sort of, related in the sense that Buddhism is interested in dealing with emotional distress, and that's exactly what psychology is interested in as well. So they both go quite together, and I think because I'm a Buddhist, it actually helped me to understand my Western training better, and my Western training helped me to understand Buddhism better, because you kind of see why people do certain things, and you see it from two different angles. So I always personally recommend people should pick up some good psychology books to read, because that could help maybe your Dharma understanding as well. So,
Thank you so much, Dr. Lin. It's really
yeah.
inspiring.
Actually, I would recommend one book to read that's sort of related to what I'm talking about today. You could check up, I think Rebecca Lee's book actually do a good job talking about this. Her recent books on silent elimination. She actually because I think she's a professor, so she could talk things in more systematic way. Yeah,
It's a great book. Highly recommended.
yeah. So she get it correctly. I mean, sh- how meditation is not just to sit there and have a good time. I mean, you could do that with the massage. So yeah. If I want to have a good time, there's so many things I can do to have a good time
Exactly.
other than sitting there. That makes sense, right? Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.